Pick someone else. I've been returned 6 times. Those words would haunt Herman Carter for years. But on that cold November morning, standing in the cramped hallway of Chicago's Mercy Point Adoption Agency, he didn't yet know they would change everything. Herman Carter wasn't supposed to be here. At 38, he was a self-made billionaire. The kind of man who appeared on magazine covers with headlines like Tech's Golden Boy and The Man Who Never Sleeps. He had everything. A penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, a private jet, more money than he could spend in 3 lifetimes. But money couldn't fill the hollow space inside him. Not anymore. If you want to know what happened next in this story, subscribe and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. Every view helps bring more stories like this to life. It started 6 months ago, at his mother's funeral. She'd gripped his hand in those final moments and whispered, "You've built an empire, Herman. But who will you share it with?" The question haunted him through sleepless nights in his empty penthouse. He'd grown up as the golden child, the one who was supposed to achieve, to conquer, to win. His father had drilled it into him. Emotions are weaknesses. Success is everything. Herman had believed it, until his younger sister Sarah died when he was 16. She'd struggled with depression, and he'd been too busy winning debate competitions and maintaining his perfect GPA to notice. Too busy achieving to see she was drowning. He'd never forgiven himself. 3 weeks ago, Herman saw a news segment about Alvina Rodriguez, a 9-year-old girl with autism. Confined to a wheelchair after a car accident that killed her mother 2 years prior. The reporter called her unadoptable. That word ignited something in Herman he thought had died with Sarah. Purpose. "Mr. Carter?" Sophie Chen, the caseworker, appeared in the hallway. Her eyes were kind but cautious. "Alvina's waiting in room 3. But before you meet her, I need you to understand something." Herman straightened his tie, a nervous habit. "I've read her file. I understand her needs." Sophie's expression darkened. "Files don't tell you what it feels like to be returned. 3 families have taken Alvina home, Mr. Carter. 3 families promised her forever. And 3 times, she came back here, more damaged than before." The words hit Herman like a physical blow, but he nodded. "I'm ready." Room 3 smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. Alvina sat in her wheelchair by the window, her back to the door. Her dark curls fell past her shoulders, and she was humming, a tuneless, repetitive sound that seemed to fill the space with loneliness. "Alvina?" Herman's voice was gentler than he'd intended. "My name is Herman. I'd like to talk to you." The humming stopped. Slowly, Alvina turned her wheelchair around. Her eyes, deep brown and impossibly old for a 9-year-old, locked onto his. "No," she said simply. Herman blinked. In all his preparations, he hadn't considered outright rejection. I'm sorry? I don't want to go with you." Alvina's voice was flat, emotionless, the tone of someone who'd learned not to hope. "You'll just bring me back. They always do." Sophie stepped forward. "Alvina, Mr. Carter came all the way from—" "I don't care." Alvina turned back to the window. "Rich people are the worst. They think they can fix anything with money, but they can't fix me." The word "me" dripped with such self-loathing that Herman felt his chest constrict. This wasn't what he'd expected. He'd imagined a grateful child, a heartwarming moment, maybe some tears of joy. Instead, he was facing a 9-year-old who'd already given up on being loved. Herman pulled up a chair and sat down, even though Alvina refused to look at him. "You're right," he said quietly. "Money can't fix people. I learned that the hard way." For the first time, Alvina's shoulders tensed, a sign she was listening. "My sister. She needed help, and I was too blind to see it, too focused on succeeding, on being perfect, and now she's gone." Herman's voice cracked. "I can't bring her back, but maybe Maybe I can be there for someone else who needs someone to stay. Alvina turned her head slightly, not quite looking at him, but no longer completely shut off. I'm not asking you to trust me, Herman continued. I know I have to earn that, but I'm asking for a chance. One chance to prove that not everyone leaves. Before Alvina could respond, Sophie touched Herman's shoulder. Can I speak with you outside? In the hallway, Sophie's expression was grim. There's something you need to know before you go any further with this. Herman's heart raced. What? Alvina has been rejected by 7 families, not 3. I downplayed it because most people walk away when they hear the real number. Sophie's eyes glistened with unshed tears. The last family kept her for 3 days before returning her. 3 days, Mr. Carter. Do you understand what that does to a child? Herman felt rage and heartbreak collide in his chest. Why? What happened? She had a meltdown at a restaurant. They were embarrassed. Sophie's voice hardened. They said she was too difficult and that they couldn't handle the attention. Herman stared at the closed door of room 3, where a 9-year-old girl sat believing she was unlovable. His hands clenched into fists. I'm not them, he said firmly. Sophie studied him for a long moment. Prove it. Because if you walk away too, I don't think Alvina survives another rejection. Not emotionally. Herman Carter had conquered boardrooms and built an empire. But could he break through walls built by 7 betrayals? And what happens when he discovers that Alvina's past holds darker secrets than anyone imagined? Herman had never failed at anything in his life. Until now. For 6 weeks, Herman visited Alvina every day at the group home where she lived. 6 weeks of rejected olive branches. 6 weeks of watching her walls grow higher instead of crumbling. His penthouse, once a symbol of his success, now felt like a museum of missed opportunities. Alvina's room sat empty, decorated in soft purples and yellows, colors Sophie said Alvina liked. The wheelchair-accessible ramps he'd installed throughout his home gathered dust. Mr. Carter, Sophie's voice on the phone was strained. It was 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. We need to talk, in person, tonight. 20 minutes later, Herman sat across from Sophie in a dimly lit coffee shop. Her hands shook as she wrapped them around her mug. There's something I should have told you from the beginning, Sophie began, her voice barely above a whisper. About why Alvina keeps getting returned. Herman leaned forward, every muscle tense. Tell me. It's not just Alvina's autism or her disability, it's... Sophie paused, as if the words themselves were dangerous. It's her previous foster mother, Margaret Whitmore. The name meant nothing to Herman. What about her? Margaret had Alvina for 8 months, longer than anyone else. On the surface, she seemed perfect. Respected member of the community, ran a charity for disabled children. Sophie's jaw clenched. But I've been investigating, and I've discovered she's been sabotaging Alvina's adoptions. Herman's blood ran cold. What? Every time a family shows interest in Alvina, Margaret contacts them anonymously. She tells them Alvina is violent, uncontrollable, that she'll destroy their family. She sends falsified medical reports, staged videos of Alvina having meltdowns that Margaret herself triggered. Why? Herman's voice was sharp with rage. Why would anyone do that? Sophie's eyes filled with tears. Because Margaret receives monthly stipends and donations for caring for unadoptable children. Alvina is her star case, the poster child she uses in her fundraising materials. If Alvina gets adopted, Margaret loses her most profitable asset. The words profitable asset made Herman want to break something. How do you know this? I've been compiling evidence for months. Margaret is careful, but she made a mistake. She sent emails from her personal account to 2 of Alvina's potential adoptive families. I have copies. Herman stood and paced, his mind racing. This was bigger than he'd imagined. More complicated. More dangerous. And for the first time since deciding to adopt Alvina, doubt crept in. Am I doing this for her? Or am I doing this to assuage my own guilt about Sarah? The question had haunted him since that first meeting. He'd told himself he wanted to give Alvina a home, to be the person who stayed. But was that true? Or was he just trying to rewrite his own story, to save the sister he couldn't save years ago? There's more, Sophie continued. Margaret has connections with the Chicago Department of Child Services. She's been trying to have me removed from Alvina's case because I'm advocating for her adoption. If she succeeds, Alvina will be reassigned to a caseworker Margaret influences. Herman stopped pacing. How much time do we have? There's a review hearing in 2 weeks. If Margaret's complaint against me is upheld, I'm off the case. And if I'm off the case... Sophie didn't need to finish the sentence. Alvina would never be adopted. She'd age out of the system, believing she was too broken to be loved. Have you ever felt like no matter what you do, it's never enough? Like the universe is conspiring against your every good intention? That's where Herman stood, at the crossroads of his own guilt and a little girl's future. What would you do? Herman sat back down, his decision crystallizing. We fight. It's not that simple, Sophie warned. Margaret has money, influence, and you're a public figure. If she decides to make this ugly, it will be front-page news. Billionaire tries to buy child. The media will crucify you. Let them. Herman's voice was steel. I didn't come this far to walk away because things got difficult. The next day, Herman broke his usual routine. Instead of visiting Alvina during designated hours, he showed up at 6 a.m. before she was awake. Sophie had given him clearance, and he sat in Alvina's room, waiting in the pre-dawn darkness. When Alvina woke, she found him sitting by the window. What are you doing here? Her voice was foggy with sleep. I wanted to watch the sunrise with you, Herman said simply. Sophie told me you like sunrises. Alvina's expression flickered. Surprise, suspicion, then something that might have been hope. Why? Because I'm not going anywhere, Alvina, no matter what anyone says about you. No matter how hard this gets. Herman's voice was steady. I'm staying. For the first time in 6 weeks, Alvina didn't immediately shut down. She wheeled her chair to the window beside him, and together they watched the sun paint the Chicago skyline in shades of gold and amber. They didn't speak, but in the silence, something shifted. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply show up, not with grand gestures or expensive gifts, but with presence, with consistency. Have you ever had someone show up for you when everyone else disappeared? Tell us in the comments. Herman's phone buzzed, a text from Sophie. Emergency, call me now. His heart sank as he stepped into the hallway. What happened? Sophie's voice was panicked. It's Alvina's biological father. He's surfaced, Herman. And he's filing to block the adoption. The world tilted beneath Herman's feet. That's impossible, he managed. Alvina's file said both parents were deceased. I thought so too. But a man named Victor Rodriguez just walked into DCFS with a birth certificate, DNA results, and a lawyer. Sophie's breathing was ragged. Herman, this man is connected. He's powerful, and he wants Alvina back. Who is Victor Rodriguez? Why did he abandon Alvina for 2 years, only to return now? And what does he really want with the daughter he left behind? The answers will change everything. Herman didn't sleep that night. He sat in his home office, surrounded by 3 monitors displaying everything he could find about Victor Rodriguez. The man was a ghost. No social media presence. No public records beyond a birth certificate and an old driver's license. It was as if he'd been erased from existence or had erased himself deliberately. Mr. Carter? His assistant, David, appeared in the doorway at 3 a.m., holding a thick manila folder. You're not going to like this. Herman grabbed the folder, his hands trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. Inside were photographs, police reports, and sealed court documents David had obtained through less than legal channels. Victor Rodriguez wasn't just Alvina's father. He was a ghost for a reason. He was arrested 6 times between 2019 and 2022, David explained, pointing to the documents. Fraud, embezzlement, suspected ties to organized crime. But every charge was dropped. Witnesses recanted. Evidence disappeared. How? Herman demanded. Money, influence, fear. David pulled out another document, a restraining order filed by Alvina's late mother, Rosa Rodriguez. Rosa tried to get away from him, the accident that killed her and put Alvina in a wheelchair? The police report says brake failure, but Rosa's sister filed a complaint claiming Victor had tampered with the car. Herman felt sick. Was he investigated? For about 48 hours. Then the case was closed. Insufficient evidence. David's expression was grim. This man is dangerous, Mr. Carter, and now he wants his daughter back. The next morning, Herman met Sophie at her office. She looked like she hadn't slept either, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, her eyes red-rimmed. I spoke with Victor's lawyer, she said without preamble. He's claiming he was unaware of Alvina's situation because he was out of the country for work. He says he's been trying to reconnect with his daughter for months. That's a lie, Herman snapped. I know. But without proof, the court has to take his claims seriously. He's her biological father, Herman. The law favors family reunification. Herman slammed his hand on the desk. Family? He abandoned her. His wife, Alvina's mother, was so terrified of him she tried to run. I know, Sophie's voice cracked. But the legal system doesn't care about what we know. It cares about what we can prove. And right now, Victor looks like a grieving father who made mistakes, but wants a second chance. Herman stared out the window at the Chicago skyline. In the distance, he could see the hospital where Sarah had died 16 years ago. His sister had needed him, and he'd been too focused on his own ambitions to help her. Was this the same? Was he so determined to rescue Alvina that he wasn't seeing the bigger picture? What if Victor has changed? What if he genuinely wants to be in Alvina's life? The thought made Herman feel like a hypocrite. He'd spent weeks telling himself he wanted what was best for Alvina. But did he really? Or did he just want to win, to prove that he could be the hero he'd failed to be for Sarah? Herman? Sophie's voice pulled him from his thoughts. What are you thinking? I'm thinking... Herman turned to face her. I'm thinking, I need to meet this man, face to face. Sophie's eyes widened. That's not a good idea. Maybe not, but I need to look him in the eye and figure out what he really wants. Before meeting Victor, Herman did something he'd been avoiding. He spoke to Rosa's sister, Maria Gonzalez. They met in a small park near Maria's apartment. She was a thin woman in her 40s, with Alvina's same dark curls and haunted eyes. Thank you for agreeing to see me, Herman began. Maria lit a cigarette with shaking hands. You want to adopt Alvina? Yes. Why? You don't know her. You don't owe her anything. Herman chose his words carefully. Because everyone deserves someone who stays, and Alvina has been let down too many times. Maria took a long drag of her cigarette, studying him. Victor will destroy you if you get in his way. Then help me understand who he is, what he wants. Maria's eyes filled with tears. My sister Rosa met Victor when she was 19. He was charming, successful, everything she dreamed of. But after Alvina was born, he changed. Or maybe he just stopped pretending. What did he do? He controlled everything. Where Rosa went, who she talked to, how she raised Alvina. When Alvina was diagnosed with autism at age 3, Victor blamed Rosa, said she'd done something wrong during pregnancy. Maria's voice shook with rage. He started disappearing for weeks at a time, and when he came back, he always had more money, new cars, expensive gifts, but he wouldn't tell Rosa where it came from. Herman's jaw tightened. The illegal activities. Rosa was terrified. She tried to leave him twice. The first time, he found her within 24 hours and threatened to take Alvina away forever. The second time, Maria couldn't finish the sentence. The car accident, Herman said quietly. Maria nodded, tears streaming down her face. Rosa called me the night before she died. She said she had evidence against Victor, something that would put him away for good. She was going to the police the next morning. What evidence? I don't know. She died before she could tell me. and after the accident, Victor disappeared. Until now. Herman returned to his car, his mind reeling. If Victor had been involved in Rosa's death, Alvina was in danger. But without proof, the courts would never believe it. His phone rang. Sophie. Herman, we have a problem. Her voice was urgent. Victor's lawyer just filed an emergency custody petition. He's claiming that Alvina is in an unsafe environment at the group home and that he needs to take custody immediately. He can't do that. There's more. Someone leaked your visits with Alvina to the press. There are reporters at the group home right now, and they're running with the story that you're a billionaire trying to buy a child to improve your public image. Herman's blood ran cold. Margaret. Almost certainly, but it gets worse. Sophie paused. The judge assigned to the custody hearing is Jonathan Brewer. He and Victor's lawyer are old friends. Herman, this whole thing is rigged. As Herman sat in his car, trying to process everything, his phone buzzed again. An unknown number. He answered. Mr. Carter. The voice was smooth, dangerous. This is Victor Rodriguez. I think it's time we had a conversation about my daughter. When a father returns from the shadows claiming rights to a daughter he abandoned, what's the real motivation? Money? Control? Or something far more sinister? And can Herman protect Alvina from the one person the law says has every right to take her? The confrontation is coming, and nothing will be the same after. They met in a private room at an expensive hotel in downtown Chicago. Neutral ground, Victor had insisted. Herman arrived early, his heart pounding with a mixture of rage and dread. Victor Rodriguez entered at exactly 3 p.m. He was tall, well-dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. His hair was graying at the temples, and his smile was calculated. The smile of a man who knew he held all the cards. Mr. Carter. Victor extended his hand. Herman didn't take it. Let's skip the pleasantries. Why are you really here? Victor's smile didn't falter. He sat down, crossing one leg over the other with infuriating casualness. I'm here for my daughter. The daughter you abandoned 2 years ago? The daughter whose mother you terrorized? Careful, Mr. Carter. Victor's voice hardened. Slander is a serious accusation. So is murder. The word hung in the air between them like a grenade. Victor's expression flickered, just for a moment, before the mask slipped back into place. My wife's death was a tragic accident. The police investigated and found nothing. Because you made sure they'd find nothing, Herman shot back. Victor leaned forward, his eyes cold. Let me ask you something, Mr. Carter. Why does a billionaire bachelor suddenly decide he wants to adopt a disabled child with autism? What are you really after? I want to give Alvina a home. Please. Victor's laugh was cruel. You want to be a hero. You want the headlines, tech mogul saves poor disabled girl. It's a PR move, and we both know it. The accusation hit Herman like a physical blow because part of it, the tiniest, most insidious part, felt true. Hadn't he wondered the same thing? Hadn't he questioned his own motives? You don't know anything about me, Herman said, but his voice lacked conviction. Don't I? Victor pulled out a folder, of course he had a folder, and slid it across the table. Your sister Sarah died by suicide when you were 16. You've spent the last 22 years building an empire, working yourself to exhaustion, never maintaining a relationship longer than 6 months. You're not trying to help Alvina, you're trying to save your sister. Herman felt the room spin. That's not... You can't save her, Mr. Carter. Sarah's gone, and Alvina isn't your second chance at redemption. Herman stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. His hands were shaking, his chest tight with fury and anguish. You're right, he said quietly. I can't save Sarah. She's gone, and I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life. Victor's expression showed a flicker of surprise. But Alvina isn't Sarah, Herman continued, his voice growing stronger. Alvina is a 9-year-old girl who has been abandoned, rejected, and told she's too broken to be loved. She doesn't need saving. She needs someone who will stay. And you think you're that person? Victor scoffed. You don't know the first thing about caring for a special needs child. How long until you get tired of the meltdowns, the doctor's appointments, the stares from strangers? How long until you realize it's too hard and you return her like all the others? I won't. You will. Victor stood, buttoning his suit jacket. Because that's what people like you do. You mistake pity for love, and when reality doesn't match your fantasy, you walk away. At least I'm honest about who I am. The words should have devastated Herman, but instead, something clicked into place. You're right about one thing, Herman said slowly. When I first decided to adopt Alvina, I didn't fully understand what I was committing to. I thought I could use my money and resources to fix things, to make everything better. Victor smirked, thinking he'd won. But these past 6 weeks have taught me something, Herman continued. Love isn't about fixing people. It's not about grand gestures or being a hero. It's about showing up every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. He stepped closer to Victor, meeting his cold gaze with unwavering determination. You want to know why I'm doing this? Because Alvina deserves someone who sees her, not as a broken thing to be fixed or a burden to be managed, but as a human being worthy of unconditional love and loyalty, something you were never capable of giving her. Victor's jaw clenched. Careful, Mr. Carter. I'm done being careful. You can threaten me, drag me through the courts, destroy my reputation. I don't care. Because every moment I spend fighting for Alvina is worth it. Even if I lose, even if she never fully trusts me, at least she'll know that someone fought to stay in her life. Victor's expression turned dark. You have no idea what you're up against. Then show me. Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled, a smile that made Herman's blood run cold. You'll find out soon enough. Victor moved toward the door, then paused. By the way, how is Alvina doing today? I heard she had a particularly difficult morning. Herman's heart stopped. How do you know that? I have friends everywhere, Mr. Carter, even in places you'd never expect. Victor opened the door. See you in court. As the door closed, Herman's phone rang. Sophie. Her voice was frantic. Herman, something's happened. Margaret showed up at the group home with a court order. She's taking Alvina back into her custody, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. What? On what grounds? The judge ruled that the group home is unstable given the media attention. Margaret convinced him that Alvina would be safer in a familiar environment until the custody hearing. Margaret is working with Victor, Herman realized with horror. This was planned. I know. And Herman? Sophie's voice broke. Alvina's asking for you. She thinks you abandoned her like everyone else. The words shattered something inside Herman. All his promises, all his determination, and now Alvina believed he'd walked away. I'm coming, Herman said, already moving toward the elevator. Don't let them take her until I get there. I'll try, but... The call cut off. When the legal system fails and the people meant to protect children become their captors, what does love demand? Herman is about to discover that fighting for someone you love means more than courtrooms and custody battles. It means risking everything. Your reputation, your future, your freedom. The question is, how far will he go? Herman broke every speed limit getting to the group home. His mind raced faster than his car. Margaret. Victor. The rigged system. It all made sense now. They were working together, and Alvina was caught in the middle. When he arrived, police cars surrounded the building. His stomach dropped. Inside, chaos. Sophie stood in the hallway, tears streaming down her face, arguing with 2 officers. Margaret Whitmore stood beside them, wearing a mask of concerned compassion that made Herman want to scream. Where is she? Herman demanded. Margaret turned, her expression cold beneath the facade. Mr. Carter, I'm afraid you have no legal standing here. Where is Alvina? An officer stepped between them. Sir, I need you to calm down. Alvina is being remanded to Mrs. Whitmore's care pending the custody hearing, the other officer explained, his tone apologetic. It's by court order. The court is wrong, Herman's voice echoed through the hallway. This woman has been sabotaging Alvina's adoptions for years. She's using her for profit. Margaret's eyes flashed with malice. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Carter. I hope you have proof. I do. Sophie stepped forward, holding up her phone. Emails, financial records, testimony from 2 of Alvina's previous potential adoptive families who were contacted by you with false information. The officers exchanged glances. Margaret's composure cracked. Those are fabrications. They're time-stamped and verified, Sophie continued, and I've already sent copies to Child Protective Services, the State Attorney General, and several news outlets. Stop! Everyone turned. Alvina sat in her wheelchair at the end of the hallway, her face blotchy with tears. Her hands clenched into fists. Stop fighting about me like I'm not here! Her voice cracked with anguish. I don't want to go with Margaret, and I don't want to go with my father, and She looked at Herman, her expression a mixture of hope and terror. I don't know if I can trust you either. Herman's heart broke. He slowly walked toward Alvina, then knelt so they were eye level. You're right, he said softly. You don't know if you can trust me. I haven't earned that yet. But Alvina, I'm asking you to give me the chance to try. Everyone says that, Alvina whispered, and then they leave. I know, and I can't promise that everything will be perfect. I'll make mistakes. There will be hard days. Days when I don't understand what you need, or how to help. Herman's voice was steady, but thick with emotion. But I can promise you this. I will stay, no matter how difficult things get, no matter what anyone says. I'm not going anywhere. The emergency custody hearing was packed. Media representatives lined the back wall. Margaret sat with her lawyer, projecting confidence. Victor sat across the aisle, his expression unreadable. Sophie sat beside Herman, gripping a folder of evidence, and Alvina sat in her wheelchair between 2 social workers, looking small and terrified. Judge Patricia Morrison entered, and everyone stood. She was in her 60s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. This is highly unusual, she began, reviewing the case files. We have a biological father seeking custody, a foster mother requesting extended care, and... She looked at Herman. A prospective adoptive parent with no prior relationship to the child. Mr. Carter, would you like to explain why you're here? Herman stood. His hands trembled, but his voice was clear. Your Honor, I'm here because love isn't about biology or legal standing. It's about commitment, about showing up when it would be easier to walk away. For the past 2 months, I've been learning what it really means to love someone. Not the fairy tale version where everything magically works out, but the messy, difficult, beautiful reality of choosing someone every single day. Herman looked at Alvina, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Alvina has been told she's too broken, too difficult, too much. 7 families looked at her and decided she wasn't worth the effort, but they're wrong. Alvina isn't broken. She's a survivor. She's strong and brave and deserves someone who sees that. He turned back to the judge. I'm not a perfect person, Your Honor. I'm someone who missed the signs when my own sister was struggling because I was too focused on success. I'm someone who thought money could solve everything. But Alvina has taught me that love isn't about grand gestures or wealth. It's about presence, about loyalty, about staying. Victor's lawyer stood. Your Honor, this is very touching, but Mr. Carter has known my client's daughter for 8 weeks. My client is her biological father. A father who abandoned her, Herman interrupted. A father whose wife was so terrified of him that she tried to flee and ended up dead under suspicious circumstances. The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Mr. Carter, that's a serious allegation. I have evidence, Your Honor. Sophie stood, handing documents to the bailiff. Financial records showing Victor Rodriguez's involvement in organized crime. The restraining order Alvina's mother filed. Police reports from the brake failure incident that was never properly investigated, and testimony from Rosa Rodriguez's sister about threats Victor made. Victor's lawyer paled. Victor himself remained still, but his jaw clenched. Margaret's lawyer stood. Your Honor, Regardless of Mr. Rodriguez's fitness, my client has been Alvina's primary caregiver. Your client has been sabotaging Alvina's adoption attempts to maintain her cash flow, Sophie countered, producing her own evidence. Emails to prospective families with false information. Financial records showing donations tied directly to Alvina's case. Mrs. Whitmore has been exploiting this child for profit. The judge's expression darkened as she reviewed the documents. Margaret's composure finally shattered, her face flushing red. Your Honor? A small voice cut through the tension. Everyone turned. Alvina had wheeled herself forward, her hands gripping the armrests of her wheelchair so tightly her knuckles were white. Alvina, sweetheart, you don't have to, Sophie began. I want to. Alvina's voice was stronger now. She looked at the judge with those old, haunted eyes. I've been to 7 families, 7 people who promised they wanted me, and every time I believed them. Every time I thought maybe this would be the one. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't stop. Margaret told me I was special, that I was helping other kids by being in her care, but she never made me feel like I mattered, like I was more than just a story she could tell people to get money. She turned to Victor, and her voice hardened. And you made my mom scared. I remember. I was little, but I remember her crying. I remember her telling me we had to leave, and then, her voice broke. Then the car wouldn't stop. Victor's face paled. Several people in the courtroom gasped. Alvina finally turned to Herman. Herman has visited me every single day for 8 weeks, even when I yelled at him, even when I told him I hated him and threw my breakfast tray at his head. Herman couldn't help but smile through his tears at the memory. He reads to me. He asks me about my drawings. He learned about autism so he could understand me better. He installed a whole ramp system in his house, even though I've never been there, just in case I said yes. Alvina's voice wavered. Nobody has ever done that for me. Nobody has ever stayed when I was difficult. She looked back at the judge. I'm scared to trust him. I'm scared he'll leave too. But I want to try. Because even though I'm scared, he makes me feel like maybe I'm not too broken to be loved. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of muffled crying. Judge Morrison removed her glasses and wiped her eyes. In my 30 years on the bench, I've seen a lot of custody cases, but I've rarely seen this much manipulation and exploitation of a vulnerable child. She fixed Margaret with a steely gaze. Mrs. Whitmore, you are hereby removed from Alvina's case, and I'm recommending a full investigation into your foster care practices. Margaret's lawyer began to object, but the judge silenced him with a look. As for you, Mr. Rodriguez, the judge's voice was ice. Based on the evidence presented, I'm ordering a criminal investigation into your possible involvement in your late wife's death. Until that investigation is complete, you are denied any contact with your daughter. Victor stood abruptly, his mask finally dropping to reveal rage. You can't do this. Bailiff, please escort Mr. Rodriguez from my courtroom. As Victor was led away, he shot Herman a look of pure hatred. Herman met his gaze without flinching. The threat was clear. This wasn't over. But for now, Alvina was safe. Judge Morrison turned to Herman and Alvina. Her expression softened. Mr. Carter, I'm granting you temporary custody of Alvina Rodriguez, pending completion of home studies and a 6-month trial period. During this time, Sophie Chen will conduct regular check-ins, and Alvina will continue her therapy. Herman felt his knees nearly buckle with relief. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me yet, the judge said, but there was warmth in her eyes. The real work is just beginning. Alvina, do you understand what this means? Alvina nodded, tears streaming down her face. It means he gets to try to be my dad? It means you both get to try, the judge corrected gently. And Alvina, if at any point you feel unsafe or unhappy, you tell Sophie. Your voice matters. It's always mattered, even when the adults in your life made you feel like it didn't. Outside, Herman knelt in front of Alvina's wheelchair. Ready to go home? Alvina hesitated, that old fear flickering in her eyes. What if I have a meltdown? What if I break something expensive? What if I'm too much trouble? Herman took her small hands in his. Then we'll work through it together. Alvina, I need you to understand something. You're not a project. You're not something I'm trying to fix. You're a person, a whole, complete person who deserves to be loved exactly as you are. Even when I'm difficult, especially when you're difficult, because that's when love actually means something. Anyone can love someone when it's easy, but choosing to stay when it's hard, that's real love. Alvina studied his face for a long moment, searching for lies, for cracks in his promise. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay, let's try. The sunset painted Herman's penthouse in shades of gold and orange. Alvina sat by the window in her wheelchair, sketching in the new art book Herman had given her. Her drawings had changed over the past 6 months. Less dark, more colorful, more hopeful. Hey, Bug, Herman used the nickname she'd grudgingly accepted. Dinner's almost ready. I made your favorite, spaghetti with the sauce that doesn't touch the noodles. Alvina smiled. A real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. Can we eat by the window? I want to watch the city lights come on. Of course. As they ate together, Alvina suddenly said, Herman, thank you for staying. Herman's chest tightened with emotion. Thank you for giving me the chance. It's still scary sometimes, Alvina admitted. Sometimes I wake up and think maybe this is a dream. That I'll wake up back at the group home. I know. Herman reached across the table and squeezed her hand. But Alvina, I'm not going anywhere. Not tomorrow, not next month, not next year. You're stuck with me. Alvina laughed, a sound that still took Herman's breath away because it was so rare and so precious. Good, she said, because you're stuck with me too. Love isn't a fairy tale. It's not about perfect moments or happy endings tied up with a bow. It's about choosing someone every single day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Herman and Alvina's story didn't end with the court ruling. That was just the beginning. There were difficult days ahead, meltdowns and therapy appointments and moments of doubt. But there were also breakthroughs and small victories and the slow, beautiful building of trust. Because that's what staying looks like. Not grand gestures, but daily choices. Not perfection, but presence. What does staying mean to you? Have you ever had someone stay when everyone else left? Or have you been the one who stayed? Share your story in the comments below. And if you believe that love is about more than just grand gestures, if you believe it's about showing up day after day, no matter what, then subscribe to this channel. Because Alvina and Herman's journey is just beginning, and you won't want to miss what comes next. Hit that subscribe button and let's continue this story together. Because everyone deserves someone who stays.